Good evening, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Welcome for those here in the sanctuary to Temple Havat Shalom, and welcome and Shabbat Shalom to all of you who are joining us watching the live stream at home on your computer or your TV. We're going to have some great Shabbat spirit tonight, some praying, some singing, and we'll begin on page 10 with How Good It Is. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger. On the bima next to me is our soloist, Allison Rosoff, and down on the piano, our accompanist, Joy Katzen-Guthrie. For those following along in the prayer book, you'll find the words to Hine Matov, a verse from Psalm 133 on page 10. מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. How good it is to be together. How good it is to be together. Whoa, 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 whoa.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. How good it is to be together. How good it is to be together. Whoa, 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 whoa. We'll turn now to the words of the candle blessing on page 2. First, we'll sing Light These Lights.
Oh, hear my prayer I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace.
Oh, hear my prayer to you.
Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us
Shabbat. Blessed are you, God, for the commandment, the mitzvah, and sacred obligation of kindling the lights of Shabbat. I'd like to share a poem with you by the liturgist Ruth Bryn. It's called God, You Listen. God, you listen to prayer. Hear our prayers when they are worth listening to. God, you are one. Hear us when we are one people. Hear us when each of us speak as a whole person, a single one. God, you create. Hear us when we try to create a loving relationship or a better ground for a growing soul or hope. God, you know us. Help us to summon our souls, to stretch with utmost love toward you. I'm going to continue on page 24 with the words of Shalom Aleichem, talking about the Malachim, the angels and messengers in our lives.
Shalom Lechem, Malachi HaSharet, Malachi Elyon, Shalom, Shalom, Melech, Malachi HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu,
Shalom, shalom.
Rolchem l'shalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Elyon, Shalom, Shalom. Melech, Malachi HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu,
Shalom, shalom.
Peace be upon you, angels divine. Shabbat shalom umevorach. Machuni l'shalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Elyon, Shalom, Shalom. Melech, Malachi HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shalom, Shalom. Tzeitzkem l'shalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Elyon, Shalom, Shalom. Melech, Malachi HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu,
continue with words of praise, the Hatzi Kaddish found on 26.
Yitkada shmei rabba B'yamad yirachute v'yam lich malchute B'chayechon u'v'yomechon U'chayei kol beit Yisrael Bagala U'vizman kariv V'imaru Amen Yeshmei Rabba mevarach le'olam olam yamaya yitbarach yishtabach v'yiba'ar v'yiroma v'yidnasei v'yidhadar v'yidaleh v'yidalal shemei dekudesha brichu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata Dush bechata v'nechemata Damira be'alma v'imaru
Amen. Continue with Shema and its blessings, which begins on page 28 with the call to prayer. Let's rise for the Baruch.
Baruchu et Adonai Amen Vorach Baruch Adonai Amen Vorach Le'olam Praise Adonai, the Holy One. Praise Adonai, the Holy One. Baruchu et Adonai. Mevorach le'olam v'ahen. Praise Adonai, the Holy One. Praise Adonai.
Let's read together on 31, a prayer for creation. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise are you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. And on 31, words of ahava, words of love. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works in the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Sing Open Up Our Eyes together. teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one.
Open up our eyes.
Open up our eyes.
Teach us how to live.
Teach us how to live our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one.
And
We will know that you
are one.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue on page 36, chanting the words of the V'ahavta. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom alevavecha Vishinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shitecha bevetecha, uvlechtecha v'derech, uvshokbecha ukhumecha, ukshartam leot ayadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, uktavtam, al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim leloechem ani Adonai Eloechem asher hotzeti etchem Meretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem lelohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. Preparing to sing our words of freedom, Michamocha. Let's read together on 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land. That the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Svele,
Nora,
Nora,
Tehilo,
Tehilot, Ose, Vele.
Micha Mocha, Baelim Adonai,
Micha Mocha, Neda HaKodesh. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We'll continue with a prayer of shelter and protection, Hashkivenu, page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, le'amideinu shomreinu, lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, le'amideinu shomreinu, lechaim. Ufroseinu sukat shlomecha, ushmor tzidkenu uvoreinu. Ufroseinu sukat shlomecha, ushmor tzidkenu uvoreinu. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, le'amideinu shomreinu, lechaim. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu v'yakomo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
Are you, God, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, Israel, and throughout the world. Let's sing now a traditional Shabbat song, Vishamru B'nai Yisrael, people of Israel shall keep Shabbat and will be refreshed. Page 44.
Vishamru
B'nai Yisrael et HaShabbat Lasot et HaShabbat
Ledorotem biritolam
Vishamru B'nai Yisrael
et
Shabbat Lasot et HaShabbat Ledorotam biritolam Vishamru B'nai Yisrael et HaShabbat Lasot et HaShabbat
Ledorotem biritolam Ishishid yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim et haaretz Vishamru
B'nai Yisrael et HaShabbat Lasot et HaShabbat Ledorotam biritolam
Uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayirafash Shabbat vayirafash
Vishamru B'nai Yisrael et HaShabbat Lasot et HaShabbat Ledorotam biritolam. Let's rise now for the words of the Tefillah, our standing prayers, which begin on page 46, asking God to open up our lips and hear our prayers.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi hilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'chonei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imahot, U'mevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Ve'ava, Melech Ozer, U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Yaakov, Atah Rav Loshia, Mashiva Ruach, Marina Gashem, Mechachel Chaim B'chesed, Mechayei Hakol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Nofim Ve'rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umechayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'agivurot, Umidom Melach, Mechmemit Umechayeh, Umatmiach Yeshua, V'nemanata Lechayot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei HaKol.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom, yalu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue now with the blessings in between. First, for the holiness of Shabbat, Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. And on 56, a prayer asking that God's presence will always be with Zion, with Israel. Baruch atah Adonai HaMachazir Shechinato L'Tzion. And we'll continue with words of gratitude. Baruch atah Adonai Hatov Shimcha U'cha Na'eh Lechodot. And our seventh and final blessing of the tefillah is always for peace, shalom, on page 60. Grant abundant peace, shalom rav, to Israel, your people forever, for you're the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, God, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. Feel free to take these moments for your own thoughts and prayers while you listen to Shalom Rav being sung.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם.
Going to turn to a prayer of healing, Mishabera. You'll find that on the screen behind us, also on page 253, if you're in your Sidur, Mishkan Tefillah, dwelling place of prayer. So we think of the following individuals, prayers for courage, strength, and healing. Yonatan Reuven ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Lisa Cargile, Marie D'Alessandro, Eddie Deerfield, Leslie Eckhouse, Evelyn Edelman, Heather Felser, Sue Fischelo, Harry Fleisch, Denise Freifeld, Mitchell Freifeld, Jerry Gottlieb, Leah Gottlieb, Doris Harding, Arthur Maller, Bob Masarski, Arnold Miller, William Miller, Stephanie Ross, Eddie Seligman, Arlene Charlotte, Betty Slavny, Jeff Stark, and Adam Weinstein. If there are any other names to add, either aloud or in your hearts, feel free at this time.
My father, George Stark. Misheberach Avo those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Do Jewish people get more Jewish when they get older? Are there things that just can't be forgiven? Can a robot be Jewish? What does Torah teach us about addiction? And is democracy originally a Jewish idea? These are some of the pressing issues discussed in the Ask the Rabbi section of every issue of Moment magazine. I just got a copy of that given to me. Moment magazine focuses on the life of the American Jewish community. It was founded all the way back in 1975 by Elie Wiesel and writer Leonard Fine. And it was named after the Yiddish newspaper Der Moment, which began in 1910 and had a huge circulation until the Holocaust. Every Ask the Rabbi question in Moment magazine is posed to no less than 10 different rabbis across the denominational spectrum and beyond. There are renewal, independent, and modern Orthodox rabbis, Reform, Reconstructionist, and conservative rabbis, traditional Orthodox rabbis alongside Chabad rabbis and humanistic rabbis. In my estimation, every base seems to be covered. Now, I've read a number of these Ask the Rabbi sections over the years. They're always really current, and many times they're quite provocative. And if it's true that 2 Jews lead to 3 opinions, you can only imagine what it would be like if you get 10 rabbis together. Needless to say, sometimes they agree, and many times they don't. So it is with one of Moment's classic Ask the Rabbi questions. Should Jews be happy? It's deceptively simple, this question. Should Jews be happy? On the one hand, we might be quick to say, yes, of course Jews should be happy. We should have just as much right to happiness as anyone else in the world. Yet the more you know about Jewish history, the harder it is to avoid the inheritance of sorrow that is part and parcel of being Jewish. After all, many of our holidays are directly related to the threat of great harm to the Jewish body politic. During Passover, we celebrate the Israelites' nail-biting escape from the Egyptian army at the Red Sea. On Purim, we shake our groggers, our noisemakers, while reading the story of Haman's plot to destroy the Jews. And of course, there's the unforgettable catastrophes of the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. More recently, there's the shadow of the Holocaust, the greatest tragedy of all. On the other hand, we do have the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, which says, eat, drink, and be merry. It's a clear declaration of living life to the fullest because we never know what's going to happen next. And during the week of Sukkot, where we spend a week outside in a hut, we're actually commanded to be happy. And one of the names of the holiday actually is Zman Simchatenu, the time of our happiness or our rejoicing. So what do some of the rabbis think about this question? Should Jews be happy? One of the respondents, this is a non-denominational rabbi named Gershon Walker, he's from the Walking Stick Foundation, said the following: happiness shouldn't be something that Jews should strive for. We're here for the very purpose of not knowing why. This is the audacity of Torah, which challenges us to dance on Simchat Torah with numbers etched into our arms, to dream tenaciously about about Jerusalem in spite of 2,000 years of exile, and to sing joyful melodies on Saturday, even if we know a pogrom is pending on Sunday. This juxtaposition between our people's collective love of humor, laughter, and joy, and unimaginable tragedy, genocide, and expulsion that we faced as a group is powerful. But I'm not exactly convinced that happiness will be found in not knowing why things are the way they are. So let's move to the right, so to speak, and hear what a Chabad rabbi has to say. This Chabad rabbi is named Yossi Serebriansky of the Mile High City in Colorado. He said, "As Jews, we're an or lagoyim, a light to the nations. We strive to bring about a perfected world, not all that much to be happy about. Yet the Torah complains that you didn't serve God with happiness and gladness of heart when you had an abundance of everything." For this rabbi, happiness is all about being one with God, one with the divine, along with doing our part to bring the world into alignment. So his answer is yes, we should be happy to strive for these things. I like this answer better because it motivates each of us to work toward the goal of striving to create balance and do good in our lives and finding happiness along the way. The last answer that I'd like to share is from a Reform rabbi named Laura Novak Weiner. She teaches at the Reform Seminary, Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion in Los Angeles. She writes, "Of course we should be happy. Now, is happiness in our control? Our tradition affirms that happiness comes from the choices that we make each and every day, how we live, and with whom we are in relationship. We should adopt this type of mindset and strive for happiness in this way every day." What's interesting here is that the Chabad rabbi and the Reform rabbi both answered in the affirmative, yes, even if the methodology that they use to achieve happiness is quite different. Where the Chabad rabbi leads with the idea of happiness being achieving oneness with God, the Reform rabbi focuses solely on our daily behavioral choices. To be sure, some people think that happiness is all about perspective. All of us know people who see the world as a glass half full, while we also know people who see the world as a glass half empty. I tend to agree with this type of philosophy or perspective, but I also know that we have the ability to change our perspective over time. It's not easy, but it is possible to do it. This was certainly the case with Eddie Jaku. He was a Jew and Holocaust survivor who led with kindness, with grace, generosity of spirit, and tolerance. This self-proclaimed happiest man on earth died recently at 101 years old. Some of you might be familiar with him because he gave a TED Talk. He also wrote a book about his philosophy of life, finding happiness, and was also a guest on the Today Show. In 2019, Jacko even said this: "Just a smile from one single miserable person can make me happy." And that's pretty impressive. So how did Eddie Jaku become such an optimist? He was born in Germany with the name Eddie Jabukowitz. He was proud to be a German first, he said, a German second, and Jewish at home. But things changed radically after Nazi forces and others burned synagogues and destroyed Jewish homes on November 9, 1938, Kristallnacht. Jacko was at boarding school at the time. He quickly returned home to find that his house was completely empty. In the morning, he was taken to Buchenwald, one of the first concentration camps. He was eventually transported to Auschwitz, as were his parents, who he never saw again, along with his sister. Remarkably, he survived all those years, and in 1945, he escaped into the wilderness during a death march. He was rescued in June that same year. Afterwards, whenever Jaku shared what he witnessed, people just didn't want to believe it. Perhaps they felt that his story was just too brutal to be true. But of course, it was true. And for some time, Jaku was miserable, until he met his wife, Flor, and started a family. 80 years ago, he didn't think that he would ever have a wife, let alone children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. But then he did. In his TED Talk, Jaku shared his secret for happiness: hope. Where there is life, he said, there is hope, and family and friends are key to that hope. Over the course of his 101 years, he learned that life is beautiful if you choose to make it beautiful, by making positive choices each and every day and inspiring people to step back and realize that we all need one another. Today we live in a time where social distancing remains the norm. It's not exactly the perfect recipe for finding happiness. Because as well as social distancing works in terms of slowing the spread of the coronavirus, it does come with an emotional cost, one that can be felt by our kids, by our family, by our friends, and by each one of us. As an example, I was talking to an older congregant who stopped by yesterday to drop something off. It was actually the first time that I met this congregant in person. We had spoken on the phone, see each other over the video, but now in person. She told me how happy she was to see me, and I was just as happy. She kindly shared her appreciation of all that we've done as a synagogue to bring Shabbat and holiday services into her home. But then she told me she felt very lonely and isolated, which got me thinking. While it's clear that we still need social distancing, wearing our masks and the like, we also need social solidarity, because it's the interdependence between individuals in a community that allows us to enhance the life of others. This is what lifts people's spirits, one conversation at a time. This is what happens during our recently reinstated outdoor Oneg Shabbat service last Friday. And it's also what Eddie Jaku was speaking about when he talked about happiness, the importance of friends, family, a community, and hope. For 2,000 years, Jews have been trying to navigate a way to remember the sorrows of the past while continuing to live life to the fullest. I think we've done a pretty good job of it, all things considered. Now, if you're wondering what my answer to this question, should Jews be happy, is, it's a definite yes. Striving for happiness is always a worthy goal, and it's an innate human desire. Somehow, Eddie Jaku was able to figure this out, and this after witnessing some of the worst atrocities in human history. I'd like to think that we can follow his lead and strive to be happy too. Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to continue on page 282, the prayer Aleinu, the adoration. Let's rise.
Aleinu l'shabech la'adon ha'kol, la'tei gedula le'otzer bereshit, shelo asanu ki goyei haratzot, ve'lo samanu ki mishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam kelkeinu kahem, ve'lo ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Feel free to be seated. You'll find the words to Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, words of praise, on page 294. As we call to mind and to heart families in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days mourning a loved one, as we remember Marcy Bunn, wife of Johnny Bunn, and Daniel Ippolito, husband of Michelle Ippolito. We also mark with a sense of love and affection the yahrzeit anniversary of passing of loved ones. On this Shabbat, we remember Morris Spinstein, Archie Bloom, Minnie Brand, Mary Chapman, Harold Cohen, David Donaldson, Ethel Eckber, Marvin Hawkins, Leonard Jacobson, Sarah Klein, Dorothy Lippman, Phyllis Mann, Sanford Oith, Julius Perlman, Esther Regent, Beatrice Schneider, S. Daniel Skulik, Estelle Schultz, Nan Strauss, and Bertha Weiss. Are there any other names to add for yahrzeit? Yes? We say Zichronam Livracha, may all of these good people and their memories continue to be a blessing in their loved ones' lives as we rise to offer the words of Kaddish praise together. Page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayekon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dekol beit Yisrael, v'agalal v'zman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mivarach le'alam ulamei almayah, Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha brihu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran b'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and the world, as we say, amen.
V'imru, 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 amen. V'imru,
Feel free to be seated. You'll find the words to Shabbat Kiddush behind me and on page 5. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei b'riah gafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ava uvratzon hinkilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tekilah L'migrahe kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta, v'yotanu kidashan, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava u'ratzon, inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat.
Amen. Hamotzi
Lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Announcements. Whenever I go to Jewish summer camp, like, serve as faculty, they'd always sing, like with all the kids in the announcements, and they would say, a horrible way to die, a horrible way to, but no, it's a fun Jewish camp thing. Many thanks to Allison and to Joy for their beautiful music, and in the back are two Jew tech crew, Steve Koningsberg and Brad Wexler. Our Sisterhood Judaica shop is stocked up for Hanukkah. Feel free to look anytime during the week. Norma Van Ness is going to be personing the gift shop starting next Friday. So after services, you'll be able to go in, have a look, and shmai around. Our second Lador Vador intergenerational Shabbat service featuring 5th and 6th graders will take place Friday, November 5th. That's just in a couple weeks. 7 p.m., so a little bit earlier than our 7:30 usual time. The Social Action Brotherhood and Temple Sisterhood are sponsoring an end-of-life Zoom presentation November 10th at 7 p.m. with two dynamic speakers to help us navigate through this important subject. Join Sisterhood for another Zoom program November 11th at 6 p.m. Anything but traditional potato latkes, but you're not going to be able to taste the grease over the Zoom or something like that, but I guess you can splatter it at home if you follow along. Our observance of Kristallnacht and Veterans Day will take place Friday, November 12th. And right after services, join us for our oneg right outside the temple foyer. It's a beautiful night, so hopefully we'll enjoy a quick nosh and gathering together as a community. Our closing song is going to be Shabbat Shalom, or Shir Hamalot. This is from Psalms 126. You'll find the words right on the screen behind me. Shabbat Shalom, 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 Umevorach, Asmalesko Pinu, Ushonenu Rina, אז יאמרו בגויים, הגדיל אדוני לעשותי מלך. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, umevoram. And if you turn to the next slide, le voila. Remember I said I was going to create a slide for our closing prayer for health and well-being? There it is. So feel free to join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh, for the mitzvah and sacred obligation to protect our health and the health and lives of those we come in contact with. I'd like to say Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us in person and over the airwaves at home. Good Shabbos until I see you next week.